This exact Facebook ad structure has made me over $1.5 million in revenue for my dropshipping stores to this day. And in today's video, I'm gonna break down everything for you step by step and show you the exact structure and the exact strategy that I use for my own dropshipping stores. And it's the exact same thing that I implemented on this store that you see on screen right now that made almost $800,000 in revenue. There's gonna be no fluff, there's gonna be no guru hype, none of these things. Let's just build this together. But first of all, why should you even listen to some random guy from YouTube talking about this? Well, I've done $1.5 million in revenue for my own dropshipping brands, but then on top of that, I also run an agency where I've made over $7 million in revenue through Facebook ads as well for these brands. And so combined over the last 7 years or so, I've made close to $10 million in revenue online. And let me tell you, this playbook works for every single niche as long as the product makes people say, I need this in my life right now. So before we actually get to how to set it all up and how it works, first you need to verify some things before you even start to scale. So let's just talk about the criteria before scaling. So there are 4 things that you need to verify. First, you need to verify that you're profitable, because you're not going to be scaling anything that's unprofitable. I don't care how many people are going to tell you, hey, if you just spend more money, you'll make more money and eventually the performance will be better. That's not how Facebook ads work. There's something called diminishing returns within advertising, and that means the more that you spend, the less you're going to get out of the last dollar that you spend, meaning that your performance is going to look like this, and then it's going to curve out at some point and it's going to start to go down. So if you spend, let's say $50 a day right now, and you're going to scale up to $1,000 per day, well, the last dollar you're going to spend on those $1,000, that return on ad spend is going to be much worse than the first dollar that you spend. And so always keep in mind that your performance is going to decline the more you start scaling. Next up, you need to make sure that you have at least $200 liquid, because scaling comes from profit reinvesting. It's not your rent money that you're going to risk here. So always make sure that you have a little bit of cash, because you're probably going to be paying Meta for your ad spend very, very quickly, because your credit balance is not going to be super high at the beginning. So you need to make sure that you have some cash on hand so you can pay for your ads before you get your Shopify payouts. Then you need to make sure that you have a reliable supplier, because if you start scaling and your supplier doesn't have inventory, well, you're going to run into a whole host of issues. You're not going to be shipping out products. Your customers are going to get mad. They're going to ask for refunds. Your Stripe account is going to get banned, and you're going to lose a whole ton of money. And so always make sure that if you're going to be scaling aggressively, to ask your supplier if they actually have the stock on hand. And then lastly, you need to make sure that you have a warm ad account. If you don't have a warm ad account that has a little bit of history behind it, it's likely that you're either going to have a spending limit, which is usually $25 to $50 per day, and you can be stuck there for weeks, or you're simply going to get banned from Facebook because they're like, hey, what's this guy doing scaling from $50 a day to $1,000 per day in like a week? So if you have a brand new ad account, what I would recommend first is that you just launch a very, very simple engagement campaign. Just run a simple engagement campaign optimizing towards page likes on your Facebook page or something for like $5 a day, and let that run for like 3 to 4 days, and then you're good. You just want to make sure you have a little bit of history with Meta before you start going crazy. Now, let's build this out together then. So how does this look like? First of all, we need to talk about creatives, because creatives is the targeting these days on Meta. So what I do, especially when it comes to a product launch, like testing a new product, I always make sure that I put as little work up front as possible. All I want to do is just see if this product is even viable and if I can make a little bit of profit. So to do an MVP, what you're going to do is you're going to identify some of your competitors. Hopefully you've already done that through your product research before you decide to launch this product. And so you're going to go to those competitors and you're going to go to their ads library, and then you're going to see what ads are running. Here you're going to look for 2 things. You're going to look for the ads that has been running the longest, and then you're going to be looking for the ads with the most variations. Now we want to look for the oldest ads, because those are usually, if they're still active, the ones that are the most profitable and has the most stable performance. And then regarding variations, if you just go into the ads library, you can see like just above the ad, how many variations is of this ad. And if there's a lot of them, it's likely because they have that exact ad inside multiple different ad sets, meaning it's a high performer. And so you can literally just rip off 4 videos, for example, from some competitors, then trim off some branding if there is anything, and literally just launch that. And we're gonna have the same 4 creatives inside all of the different ad sets that we're gonna be setting up. So that way we can be comparing performance data, apples to apples. So it's all the same. So I use a method I call the 1x5x4 method. And it goes like this. So first of all, the 1 stands for, we're gonna have 1 CBO campaign optimize towards purchases with a $50 a day budget. The reason we're gonna do CBO is because it's, first of all, it's gonna save you a ton of time, it's gonna save you headaches, and it's likely gonna be performing better than if you're gonna be using ABO and manually trying to adjust the budgets. What I've seen over the years is that Meta is actually super efficient at this. And sometimes you run into the issue where you're like, hey, this one ad set, for example, hasn't spent that much, but the cost per purchase is super low. Like it's way better than anything else on the ad account. Well, the reason for that and the reason why it's not spending more is because Meta knows that it cannot sustain that same cost per purchase at a higher level. And so if you run into that issue where you see like an ad set is only spending like 10% compared to any of the other ad sets, but the results are like 50% better than anything else, it's because Meta knows that this is not going to be performing at a higher level. So please don't do this simple beginner mistake of turning off everything else besides that one ad set that literally has like $10 to spend and 2 purchases, because I promise you it's not going to be performing well over time at a high level. Now moving on to the 5, it stands for 5 ad sets. And so with the ad sets, we're going to have 5 different interests and they're all going to be singular broad interest. And so let's say you're selling wallets, for example. One audience suggestion could be people with an interest in luxury goods like Louis Vuitton and Chanel, or it could be people interested in traveling, for example. So you want to keep this very broad, ideally above 3 million in audience size. If it's below 3 million, find a different audience. But if you're selling in the US, for example, alone, it's going to be very hard for you to find such a niche audience that's below 3 million. Like most of them are like 10 to 25. And then the 4 in the 1x5x4 method stands for the 4 ads that we're then going to have inside each of the 5 ad sets. And then the last tip here is that make sure you always have Advantage Plus placements turned on. You don't want to manually go in and say, hey, I only want to run ads on Instagram stories or only on the Facebook feed on mobile. No, just let Meta do that optimization. You're not going to be able to beat the algorithm, I promise you. So once you have a campaign set up, let it run for 3 to 4 days before you start making any decisions. So many beginners do the mistake of just spending like $10 to $20 and then they're like, hey, why haven't I gotten like 1 or 2 sales yet? What's going on? They start panicking and they turn off everything and they move on to the next thing. Don't do that mistake. You need to give things a fair chance, and usually the first 2 days will be kind of wobbly for you. Maybe day 1 you'll have good results and then day 2 you'll have shitty results. You don't know. So you need to give it at least 3 days minimum. If you make no sales in 3 days, well then move on. If it's kind of like up and down, give it that 4th day. And if it's still bad and you're unprofitable, well, kill it and move on. That's completely fair. Now, if you do end up getting success after 4 days and you're profitable and you want to scale this, here are some of the metrics that you should be looking for to kind of determine what to optimize. So first of all, you need to look at the click-through rate, CTR, and you need to look at the link click-through rate inside of Meta when you do your columns. If this is above a 2.5%, that's very good. If it's less than 2%, it's likely because your creative just isn't strong enough. You don't have a strong enough hook and your call to action is likely poor. Next up, you need to look at your CPC and specifically your link cost per click. Make sure you do that distinction when you set up your columns inside the Meta Ads Manager. Here, you're looking for ideally a CPC below $0.8, 80 cents. If it's above a $1.2 cost per click, it likely means that you're either struggling with a hook issue or you just have the wrong audience. Now, if you have the wrong audience, well, you can very easily see that based on your CPM, so the price per 1,000 impressions. If that's very high, like above $50, it likely means that your creative with that audience is just not performing well together. And you can compare it to all the 4 other ad sets that you have. And if this one is an outlier, for example, and this CPM is like $80 and for the rest is like $35, well, you probably just need to turn off that ad set and find a new ad set that's performing better. Now, there are 2 other things that you need to look for. There's your CPA, cost per acquisition, and your ROAS, your return on ad spend. These are really the only 2 things that matters when it comes to e-commerce and getting success in dropshipping, because this determines all of your profit. But there's no real benchmark that you can do for this because it's highly depending on how much profit are you looking to make, what's your risk tolerance essentially, but also what is your margin. So you need to make sure that you know exactly how much can you pay for a purchase. So your CPA, what's your goal CPA, but also what is your break-even return on ad spend. So let's say you have a 50% profit margin. That means that you need a 2x return on ad spend to just break even. So if your product costs $100, well, you can pay $50 in CPA to just break even. Anything below that, well, now you're turning a profit. Also, if your CPA and your ROAS is super good and you're making a ton of profit, but your CPC is like $2 and your click-through rate is like 0.5%, well, it doesn't really matter. So always focus most on your CPA and your ROAS, because if you're making profit, it really doesn't matter with anything else. The CTR and the CPC are just other guidelines that you can use to make more profit, to optimize even further. But if you're making profit already, well, just scale and try and milk it for as much as possible. So when you're ready to scale, you can either do one or two things, and this is what I do. So if I just want to scale slow and steady and I want to make sure that I just kind of keep my performance going in a more predictable way, what I'll do is I'll just take this one campaign that I launched and I will increase the budget by 20% every 3 days. The reason why I do that is because when I increase by 20%, I'm not disturbing Meta's algorithm and I'm not disturbing the learning phase, meaning I keep all the learnings that I got from the previous days. This means that my ads get smarter and smarter and my CPA is likely going to decrease over time. And the reason why I only optimize every 3 days is because it takes Meta like 2 days usually to optimize correctly and like kind of get back into shape. So the first 2 days might be kind of wonky, and then from day 3 you should start seeing normal performance again or even better. But then on the other hand, if you want to scale super aggressively, like you're just getting crazy performance on your first test, you're making a ton of profit and you just want to scale this to the moon as fast as possible, well, your other option is to just duplicate this campaign that you set up, the CPO campaign, and then increase the budget from there. And so let's say you're spending $50 a day right now, and the next campaign that you duplicate, well, that you can just set to $100 per day, for example, and now you literally tripled your budget in just a few days. And you can do this over and over and over again until you start seeing a decline in performance. And so literally with this approach, like you can scale to like $1,000, $2,000 a day in ad spend and be fine. It all depends on how good your product is and how good your creatives are. Now, when it comes to the actual optimization and like the day-to-day management of the ads, all I want you to focus on is just the ad set performance. So if the ad set has spent 3x your AOV, so let's say you have an AOV of $50, if an ad set has spent more than $150 and it's not profitable, stop it. But the thing you shouldn't do is go into that ad set, for example, and look at, okay, what ads here hasn't been performing good, and then turning those off. Because Meta works like an ecosystem. So even though you have bad performing ads, they might still help the other well-performing ads, because Meta will rotate these out and show to people at the same time. And so never optimize on an ad level, just optimize on an ad set level, and I promise you'll be fine. Then as you start progressing and you start scaling even more, creatives is really the name of the game. And so here I would say you should aim to test at least 3 to 5 new videos every single week once you're above $100 a day in ad spend. And a good tip for this is to try and batch test, meaning that you either launch all 5, for example, on one single day of the week, and so you just do everything at once, or you split it up into 2 days a week. So for example, on Mondays you launch 2 creatives, and then on Thursdays or Fridays you launch 2 or 3 new creatives as well. This way you can launch things and you can kind of let it sit for a little bit, you can analyze the performance, and then you can optimize from there and launch new ads. But please, for the love of God, don't add new ads into the ecosystem and into your campaign every single day or twice a day. It's just gonna fuck up your entire performance, and Meta is not gonna have time enough to actually optimize and give you the results that you're looking for. And that, guys, is basically my strategy. It's not very complicated, it's actually very simple. And if you know anything about business, you know that simple scales. And with the strategy, you can easily scale to spending over $1,000 per day with Meta ads. Just remember, this whole strategy essentially just boils down to testing what works and keep on testing until you find something that works. And once you find something that works, then you just double down on it, and you double down hard. So guys, that's it for this video. I hope you got some good value. If you did, I would highly appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to your channel. That would massively help me out. And if you have any questions after watching this video, just leave them down below and I'll be happy to answer. And lastly, if you're looking to get help with your own dropshipping journey, or maybe you're struggling, you haven't gotten started yet and you don't know what to do, then I'm gonna leave a link down below to my one-on-one private mentorship. It's the first link in the description. It will take you to a video where I explain everything about it, and then you can book a call with me directly and I can see if I can help you. So guys, that's it for this time. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.